Maya Chen had always been the kind of person others forgot about. Not because she was mean or difficult, but because she had mastered the art of being invisible. At Riverside Academy, a school filled with loud voices and big personalities, Maya was the girl who sat in the back corner of every classroom. Her thick-framed glasses would slide down her nose as she read books during lunch breaks, and her dark hair always fell forward, creating a curtain between her and the rest of the world. The other students rushed past her. In hallways, without a second glance, during group projects, she was usually the last one picked, and even then, her teammates would barely acknowledge her contributions. Teachers sometimes forgot to call on her during class discussions, even when her hand was raised. It wasn't that Maya was shy exactly. She simply existed in a different space than everyone else. Like she was watching life happen through a window, rather than participating in it. What nobody at Riverside Academy knew was that Maya had a secret. Every single day after school, while other students hung out at cafes or went to football practice, Maya walked 3 blocks to the old community center on Maple Street. The building was weathered and outdated, with paint peeling from the walls and floors that creaked with every step. Most people in town had forgotten the place existed, but for Maya, it was her sanctuary. In the corner of the community center's main room sat an upright piano that had seen better days. Some of the keys stuck when you pressed them, and others made no sound at all. The wood was scratched and faded, and the bench wobbled if you sat too far to the left. But when Maya sat down at that piano, none of those imperfections mattered. Her fingers would find their way across the keys like they were coming home. And for those few hours each day, she wasn't invisible anymore. She was alive. Maya had learned to play from her grandmother, a woman named Lynn who had been a concert pianist in her younger years. Lynn had performed in halls across 3 continents. Her name once printed on elegant programs and spoken with respect in musical circles. But she had given up that life when she married and had children, putting away her dreams to raise a family. Still, the music never left her. When Maya was just 5 years old, her grandmother had placed her small hands on the piano keys for the first time. Music is a language, her grandmother had told her, her weathered hands guiding Maya's fingers. But it's not a language of words. It's a language of feelings, of memories, of everything we carry inside but can't always say out loud. Those lessons had continued for years, every weekend at her grandmother's small apartment. Maya would practice scales and exercises, learning proper technique in music theory. But more than that, she learned to pour her heart into every note. Her grandmother taught her that playing the piano wasn't about showing off or impressing people. It was about honesty, about being brave enough to let people hear what was happening inside your soul. 2 years ago, her grandmother had passed away quietly in her sleep. Maya had been devastated. The funeral was small, and afterward, Maya felt like she was drowning in grief. She stopped playing piano for months, unable to bear the memories that flooded back every time she saw a keyboard. But eventually the silence became worse than the pain, and she found her way to that old piano at the community center. Now, every note she played was a conversation with the woman she missed most in the world. The spring semester at Riverside Academy brought the annual talent show, an event that dominated conversations in every classroom. Colorful posters appeared on walls throughout the school, announcing auditions and encouraging students to showcase their abilities. The talent show was a big deal at Riverside. It was the one night when the whole community came together, when parents brought cameras and younger siblings tagged along, when the auditorium buzzed with excitement and possibility, as usual. The popular students claimed their spots first. The dance team, led by a girl named Jessica, who seemed to walk through life with absolute confidence, signed up for an elaborate routine they'd been perfecting for weeks. A boy named Tyler, who always wore leather jackets and played guitar in a local band, reserved a slot for his group. There were singers, comedians, and even a magician. Everyone wanted to be part of the show. Maya watched all of this from a distance, like she watched everything at Riverside. She sat at her usual lunch table, alone with her book, as students around her excitedly discussed their acts. Part of her wanted to be invisible as always, to let the talent show happen without her. But another part of her, the part that came alive at that old piano every afternoon, whispered something different. On the last day of sign-ups, Maya stood outside the student council office for 10 minutes, her hand hovering near the doorknob. Students rushed past her, none of them noticing her internal struggle. Finally, she pushed the door open and walked inside. The student council members were lounging around, chatting about weekend plans. When Maya approached the sign-up sheet, they barely looked up. "I'd like to sign up for the talent show," Maya said quietly. One of the council members, a girl named Brittany, glanced at her with mild surprise. "Oh, sure." "What's your act?" "Piano," Maya replied. Brittany wrote down her name without much interest. "Okay, you're in. We'll email you the performance time." As Maya left the office, she heard whispered voices behind her. "Who was that?" Someone asked. "I think she's in my English class," another voice responded. "She's doing piano?" "That's random." There was a ripple of laughter, but Maya kept walking. She was used to being underestimated. She'd been underestimated her whole life. The news spread through school faster than Maya expected. By the next day, people were talking about it in hushed tones. "Did you hear Maya Chen signed up for the talent show?" Students whispered at lockers. "The quiet girl who never talks to anyone?" Some people laughed at the idea. Others felt a vague sense of pity, imagining her freezing up on stage or playing something simple and forgettable. Jessica, the dance team captain, was particularly amused when she heard. During lunch, she sat with her friends at their usual table near the windows. The popular table where everyone wanted to sit, but few were invited. "Apparently the library girl is performing," Jessica said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I didn't even know she could talk, let alone play an instrument." Her friends giggled and the conversation moved on to more interesting topics. None of them gave Maya another thought. They had their own performances to worry about, their own moments in the spotlight to prepare for. The talent show had a natural hierarchy. Everyone knew the acts that would open strong and the ones that would close the show. Maya Chen, the invisible girl who nobody really knew, was automatically placed at the very end of the program. It was almost an afterthought, slot reserved for acts the organizers didn't have high hopes for. But Maya didn't complain about her position in the lineup. She simply nodded when she received the email telling her she'd be performing last. That afternoon, she walked to the community center, as always, sat at the old piano, as always, and began to practice. The piece she had chosen was one her grandmother had taught her years ago. One of the most challenging compositions ever written for piano. Her fingers moved across the broken keys, creating music that filled the empty room. And as she played, Maya felt something growing inside her. Not confidence exactly, but purpose. She had something to say, and for once in her life, people were going to hear it. The days leading up to the talent show felt different for Maya. It wasn't that anything had changed externally. She still sat alone at lunch, still walked through hallways without anyone noticing her, still lived in that invisible space she'd occupied for so long. But inside, something was shifting. Every afternoon at the community center, she practiced with an intensity that surprised even herself. The piece she had chosen was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto, No. 2, a composition that professional pianists spent years mastering. Her grandmother had introduced it to her when she was 13, saying this piece is like a journey through every human emotion. It starts with uncertainty, builds to triumph, and ends with acceptance. One day, when you're ready, you'll understand what it means to play this. Maya hadn't understood then. She'd been too young, too focused on the technical aspects of the music. But now, 2 years after her grandmother's death, she finally got it. Every chord progression reminded her of something. The opening notes felt like grief, heavy and overwhelming. The middle section was like fighting through darkness, refusing to give up. And the final movement was like finding peace, not because the pain was gone, because you'd learned to carry it with grace. Her hands moved across, keys with muscle memory built over years of practice. The broken keys on the community center piano had taught her to adapt, to make beauty despite imperfection. When middle C stuck, she learned to press it differently. When the sustained pedal squeaked, she incorporated it into her understanding of the instrument. This piano wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She knew every quirk and flaw it possessed. One afternoon, about a week before the talent show, the community center director stopped by. His name was Mr. Patterson, a retired teacher who volunteered his time to keep the old building running. He was a kind man with gray hair and gentle eyes, the sort of person who noticed things others missed. "Maya," he said, standing in the doorway as she finished a particularly difficult passage. "I've been listening to you practice for months now, but this is something else." "What's the occasion?" Maya's fingers stilled on the keys. She wasn't used to talking about herself, wasn't comfortable with attention. But Mr. Patterson had always been respectful of her space, never pushing, just offering quiet support. "There's a talent show at school," she said simply. Mr. Patterson's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "That's wonderful. Your grandmother would be so proud. You know, I heard her play once years ago at a charity concert downtown. She had a gift for making the piano sing." Maya felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them away. "I'm playing one of her favorite pieces." "Then you'll be magnificent," Mr. Patterson said with certainty. "Don't let anyone make you doubt that." But doubt was becoming Maya's constant companion. At school, the whispers continued. She'd catch fragments of conversations in bathroom stalls, hear her name mentioned in the cafeteria. Most of it wasn't mean-spirited exactly, just dismissive. People had already decided what her performance would be like before she'd played a single note. Even teachers seemed uncertain about her choice. Mr. Davidson, the school's music teacher, approached her one day after class. He was a well-meaning man who wore sweater vests and genuinely cared about his students. But his concern was written all over his face. "Maya, can we talk for a moment?" he asked as other students filed out of the classroom. She nodded, gripping the strap of her backpack. "I heard you're performing in the talent show," he began carefully. "That's really brave of you. I'm just wondering if you've performed publicly before. The stage can be intimidating, especially in front of such a large audience." Maya shook her head. "I haven't." Mr. Davidson's expression grew more worried. "Would you consider playing something for me? Just so I can hear what you're working on? I'd be happy to offer some guidance. Maybe suggest a piece that would be more manageable for a first performance." There it was again. That assumption that she wasn't capable, that she needed to aim lower, settle for less. Maya felt something flicker in her chest. Not anger exactly, but a quiet determination. "Thank you, Mr. Davidson," she said politely, "but I'm comfortable with the piece I've chosen." She left before he could respond, her heart pounding. Standing up for herself wasn't something Maya did often. Most of the time, it was easier to let people underestimate her, to fade into the background and avoid conflict. But her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "The world will always try to make you smaller. Maya, don't help them do it." The weekend before the talent show, Maya's mother drove her to her grandmother's old apartment. It had been rented out to new tenants. But Maya had asked if she could retrieve one thing from storage, her grandmother's performance dress. The landlord had kept some of Lynn's belongings in the basement, items the family hadn't claimed immediately after her death. Maya's mother waited in the car while Maya went down to the dusty basement. She found the dress in a garment bag, navy blue and simple, exactly as she remembered it. Her grandmother had worn it to every performance, saying she never needed anything fancy because the music was the real show. Maya held the dress against herself, breathing in the faint scent of her grandmother's perfume that still clung to the fabric. "I'm going to play for you," Maya whispered to the empty basement, "and I'm going to make you proud." Back at school on Monday, the talent show was all anyone could talk about. The dance team practiced their routine during lunch in the courtyard, drawing crowds of admirers. Tyler's band played during breaks, getting people pumped up. Posters advertising the show covered every available wall space, and ticket sales were going well. The whole school was caught up in the excitement. Maya watched it all from her usual distance. During rehearsals in the auditorium, she saw other performers running through their acts. Jessica's dance routine was sharp and energetic, clearly the result of hours of practice. A girl named Hannah sang a pop song with impressive vocal control. The magician had some tricks that genuinely fooled people. Everyone was bringing their best. When it was Maya's turn to check the piano on stage, she walked up quietly while other performers were taking a break. The school's grand piano was beautiful, a Steinway that the music department had fundraised for years to afford. The keys were smooth and responsive, nothing like her community center piano. Maya played a few scales, adjusting to the feel of it. From the seats, she heard someone laugh. Is that all she's going to do? Scales. Maya's hands froze for a moment. She looked out into the dim auditorium but couldn't see who had spoken. Taking a breath, she stood up from the piano and walked off stage without a word. She didn't need to prove herself to them. Not yet. The night before the talent show, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through the piece measure by measure. Her fingers twitched against her blanket, practicing passages in the air. What if she forgot the notes? What if her hand shook too badly? What if everyone laughed? But then she thought about her grandmother, about all those afternoons they'd spent together at the piano. She remembered her grandmother's hands, wrinkled and spotted with age but still graceful as they moved across the keys. She remembered the way her grandmother would close her eyes when she played, like she was somewhere else entirely, somewhere beautiful and free. Music isn't about proving yourself to others. Maya, her grandmother, had told her once. It's about sharing your soul. And your soul is worth sharing, whether anyone else realizes it or not. Maya got out of bed and went to her desk, where she'd placed a photo of her grandmother. In the picture, Lynn was young, maybe 30, standing beside a grand piano with a slight smile on her face. She looked confident and peaceful, exactly how Maya wanted to feel. I'm scared, Maya whispered to the photo. Everyone thinks I'm going to fail. The photo, of course, didn't answer. But Maya could almost hear her grandmother's voice. Let them think what they want. You know what you're capable of. Now go show them. The next morning, Maya woke up with a strange sense of calm. She went through her normal routine, ate breakfast with her parents, and headed to school. The building was buzzing with energy. Students wore face paint in school colors, and handmade signs supporting different acts decorated the hallways. The talent show wouldn't start until 7 that evening. But the excitement was already building. During lunch, Maya sat at her usual table with a book she wasn't really reading. Nearby, Jessica and her friends were making predictions about who would win the talent show competition. They rattled off names, debating the merits of each act. Maya's name never came up. She'd been so thoroughly dismissed that they'd forgotten she was even performing. For a moment, Maya felt that familiar urge to disappear, to pull out of the show and spare herself the embarrassment. But then she remembered the hours of practice, the conversations with her grandmother's memory, the feel of the music flowing through her fingers. She'd worked too hard to quit now. That afternoon, Maya went home early to rest and prepare. She took a long shower, dried her hair carefully, and put on her grandmother's navy dress. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. Looking at herself in the mirror, Maya saw something she hadn't noticed before. She looked like her grandmother. Same dark eyes, same determined set to her jaw, same quiet strength. Her mother knocked softly on her bedroom door. Maya, are you ready? We should head to school soon. Maya took one last look at herself in the mirror. Her heart was pounding, her palms were sweaty, and part of her wanted to climb out the window and run away. But a bigger part of her, the part that had been invisible for too long, was ready to finally be heard. I'm ready, she said. The auditorium at Riverside Academy had been transformed. Colored lights illuminated the stage, and the school's tech crew had set up professional sound equipment borrowed from the local theater. Red velvet curtains framed the performance space, and rows of seats stretched back into the darkness. The air smelled like popcorn from the concession stand the student. Council had set up in the lobby. Maya arrived with her parents an hour before the show was scheduled to start. Performers were supposed to check in early, go through last-minute tech rehearsals, and get settled backstage. The lobby was already crowded with excited families, students comparing their acts, and teachers greeting parents they recognized. Maya slipped through the crowd like a ghost, heading toward the backstage entrance. The backstage area was chaos. Dancers stretched in corners, singers vocalized quietly, and the magician frantically searched for a missing prop. Jessica stood in the center of it all, coordinating her dance team's costume changes and barking instructions. She looked completely in her element, confident and commanding. When Maya walked past, Jessica barely glanced at her. everyone remember your places? Jessica called out to her team. We open the show, so we need to be perfect. This sets the tone for everything. Maya found a quiet corner near the costume rack and sat down on a folding chair. She'd brought the sheet music for Rachmaninoff's concerto, even though she'd memorized every note months ago. Sometimes just holding the pages helped calm her nerves. Her hands were already shaking, and the show hadn't even started yet. A boy from the tech crew approached her with a clipboard. You're Maya Chen, right? You're performing last? She nodded. Cool. You'll have about 5 minutes to get to the piano after the act before you. We'll bring the lights down, you'll come out, and then we'll spotlight you. Simple enough. He checked something off on his clipboard and walked away. Simple enough. Maya almost laughed. Nothing about this felt simple. At 6:45, Mr. Davidson gathered all the performers for a quick meeting. Remember, you're all winners just for having the courage to get on that stage tonight, he said with genuine warmth. Have fun, support each other, and let's make this a night to remember. The performers applauded politely, though most were too nervous or excited to really listen. Maya stood at the back of the group, clutching her sheet music. A girl she didn't know smiled at her encouragingly. But most people were focused on their own performances. At 7 o'clock sharp, the house lights dimmed. The audience settled into their seats, programs rustling as people checked the lineup. The auditorium held over 400 people, and tonight it was completely packed. Parents held up phones ready to record their children. Younger siblings bounced excitedly in their seats, and students cheered as the principal walked onto the stage to introduce the show. Welcome to Riverside Academy's annual talent show, Principal Morrison announced, his voice booming through the speakers. We have an incredible lineup tonight. These students have worked so hard, and I know you're going to be amazed by what you see. The crowd erupted in applause and whistles. From backstage, Maya could see the shadows of people in their seats, could hear the energy buzzing through the auditorium. Her stomach twisted into knots. Jessica's dance team opened the show with explosive energy. Their routine was set to a mix of popular songs, full of sharp movements and impressive formations. The crowd loved it, cheering at every flip and spin. When they finished, the applause was thunderous. Jessica and her team took their bows with huge smiles, clearly feeding off the audience's enthusiasm. Act after act took the stage. Hannah sang her pop song beautifully, hitting notes that made the audience gasp. Tyler's band played a rock cover that had everyone clapping along. The magician performed tricks that genuinely baffled people, pulling rabbits from hats and making cards appear in impossible places. A comedy duo had the audience laughing so hard some people wiped tears from their eyes. Maya watched it all from the wings, her anxiety building with each performance. Everyone was so talented, so comfortable on stage. They knew how to work the crowd, how to command attention. What was she thinking, signing up for this? She was the girl nobody noticed, and now she was going to stand in front of hundreds of people and expect them to care about what she had to say. By 9 o'clock, the show had been running for 2 hours. Some families with young children had already left, their kids getting tired. Students who'd already performed were getting restless in their seats, texting friends or whispering about after-parties. The energy that had been so electric at the beginning was starting to fade. Mr. Davidson appeared at Maya's side. You're up next, he said gently. Are you feeling okay? You look pale. Maya's mouth was too dry to speak. She just nodded. Listen, Mr. Davidson said, his voice kind. If you're not comfortable doing this, it's okay to back out. Nobody would think less of you. She'd come this far. She thought about her grandmother, about all those hours of practice, about the promise she'd made to herself. She wasn't backing out. On stage, the comedy duo was finishing their act. The audience laughed at their final joke, applauded warmly, and settled back into their seats. Principal Morrison returned to the microphone. We have one more performance tonight, he announced. Please welcome Maya Chen to the stage. The applause was polite but scattered. Most people didn't know who Maya was. In her seat near the front, Jessica leaned over to whisper to her friend. This is the quiet girl I told you about. This should be interesting. Maya walked onto the stage, and the lights hit her like a physical force. She couldn't see the audience anymore, just a sea of darkness, beyond the bright spotlight. Her legs felt like they might give out with every step. The grand piano sat in the center of the stage, waiting for her. It looked enormous and intimidating under the lights. She made her way to the piano bench and sat down carefully, adjusting her grandmother's navy dress. Her hands were shaking so badly, she had to press them against her thighs for a moment. The audience was completely silent, waiting. She could feel their skepticism, their boredom, their expectation that this would be forgettable. From somewhere in the darkness, she heard a stifled laugh. Someone whispered, "How long is this going to be?" Another voice responded, hopefully short. Maya closed her eyes. The panic was overwhelming now, threatening to swallow her whole. Her mind went blank. She couldn't remember the first note, couldn't remember anything except the crushing fear of being exposed as a fraud in front of everyone then. In the darkness behind her closed eyes, she saw her grandmother. Not a memory exactly, but a feeling, a presence. She heard her grandmother's voice, as clear as if she were sitting right beside her on the bench. "Music isn't about them, Maya. It's about you and me having a conversation. Forget they're there. Just play for me." Maya took a deep breath, then another. Slowly, the panic began to recede. Her hands stopped shaking quite so badly. She placed her fingers on the keys, feeling the smooth ivory beneath her skin. The piano was cool and solid, real and familiar, despite being in this strange, terrifying place. "I'm playing for you, Grandma," she whispered. Too quiet for anyone else to hear, and then she began. The opening chord of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the auditorium. It started softly, almost hesitantly, like someone testing the waters of a vast ocean. The notes were simple at first, but there was something in the way Maya played them, a vulnerability that made people in the audience unconsciously lean forward in the front row. Jessica stopped whispering to her friend. A few rows back, a father who'd been checking his email put his phone down. Students who'd been slouching in their seats sat up a little straighter. There was something different about this performance, though nobody could quite name it yet. Maya's fingers moved across the keys with growing confidence. The piece began to build, adding layers of complexity. Her hands crossed and recrossed, reaching for notes at opposite ends of the keyboard. The music started to swell, growing from that tentative beginning into something powerful. And as she played, Maya forgot about the audience. She forgot about being invisible, about being underestimated, about being afraid. She was back in her grandmother's apartment, playing while Lynn watched with proud eyes. She was at the community center, pouring her grief into the broken piano. She was everywhere music had ever taken her. Every moment of beauty and pain and joy she'd ever experienced, the piece continued to build. Rachmaninoff had written it during a period of deep depression, and you could hear that darkness in the music. But you could also hear the fight against it, the refusal to surrender. Maya's entire body moved with the music now, swaying with the rhythm, feeling every note in her bones. In the audience, people had stopped looking at their phones entirely. Parents who'd been half paying attention were now completely focused on the stage. Students who'd dismissed Maya as boring were staring with open mouths. Even Mr. Davidson, standing in the wings, had tears in his eyes, because what Maya was playing wasn't just technically perfect, though it was that. It wasn't just beautiful, though it was that too. What Maya was playing was honest. Every note carried the weight of real emotion, real experience, real human depth. She was sharing her soul exactly as her grandmother had taught her. It was impossible to look away. The music soared through the auditorium, filling every corner with sound. And for the first time in her life, Maya Chen was not invisible. She was radiant, powerful, unforgettable. She was exactly who she'd always been. Finally letting the world see, the music transformed from its powerful crescendo into something more tender. Maya's fingers danced across the keys with a lightness that seemed impossible after the thundering chords that had come before. This was the heart of the piece, the section her grandmother had always called the conversation. It was where the piano asked questions and answered them, where melodies wove in and out of each other like two people learning to understand each other. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. But she didn't stop playing. She couldn't have stopped if she'd wanted to. The music had taken over, flowing through her like a river that had finally found its path to the sea. Every lesson her grandmother had taught her, every hour of practice, every moment of grief and loneliness and determination was pouring out through her fingertips. In the audience, people were experiencing something they hadn't expected. This wasn't just a high school talent show performance anymore. This was something profound, something that reached into their chests and squeezed their hearts. A mother in the third row found herself thinking about her own mother, who she hadn't called in weeks. A teacher in the back remembered why he'd fallen in love with music in the first place. A student who'd been failing his classes felt something shift inside him. A reminder that beauty and meaning still existed in the world. Jessica sat frozen in her front row seat. She'd come tonight expecting to celebrate her dance team's victory, to bask in the applause and admiration she was used to receiving. She'd thought of Maya as a joke, a nobody who'd been foolish enough to put herself out there. But now, listening to this music, Jessica felt something she wasn't prepared for. Shame. How had she been so wrong about someone? How had she been so cruel to dismiss this girl without ever really seeing her? The tears on Jessica's cheeks surprised her. She never cried at school events. But the music was breaking through all her carefully constructed walls. All her popularity and confidence and need to be the best. For the first time in a long time, Jessica felt small. Not in a bad way, but in a way that reminded her there was so much more to life than being noticed, than being on top. Tyler, the boy with the leather jacket and the rock band, was having a similar experience several rows back. He'd spent years cultivating an image of coolness, of not caring what anyone thought. His band played loud, aggressive music that kept people at a distance. But this piano piece was the opposite of everything he'd built his identity around. It was vulnerable and honest and completely unafraid of showing emotion. And somehow that took more courage than anything he'd ever done. The music continued to evolve. Maya's hands moved with increasing urgency now, building toward the final movement. The piece was asking its ultimate question. After all the pain and struggle, what comes next? Rachmaninoff's answer, played through Maya's fingers, was both simple and profound. What comes next is acceptance, not giving up, but choosing to keep going despite everything. The technical difficulty of what Maya was playing was extraordinary. Her left hand played complex bass patterns while her right hand flew across the upper registers, grating melodies that seemed to shimmer in the air. There were moments when her hands moved so fast they were almost a blur, crossing over each other in patterns that required years of practice to master. But the technique never overshadowed the emotion. The two were perfectly balanced, each serving the other. Mr. Patterson, the community center director, had snuck into the back of the auditorium after hearing from a neighbor that Maya was performing. He stood near the exit, his hand over his mouth, trying not to sob openly. He'd known Maya had talent. He'd heard her practice for months. But this was beyond anything he'd imagined. This was the kind of performance that happened once in a lifetime backstage. Other performers had gathered in the wings to watch. The dancers, the singers, the magician, all of them stood in silent awe. Some had tears in their eyes. Others just stared, trying to understand how someone they'd never noticed could be capable of something so extraordinary. The girl who'd smiled at Maya earlier, a junior named Lisa, whispered to her friend, "I've been going to school with her for 2 years. How did I never know?" Maya's parents sat in the middle section of the auditorium, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white. They'd always known their daughter was talented, but they'd worried about her loneliness, her inability to connect with her peers. Watching her now, they realized something important. Maya had never been unable to connect. She'd just been waiting for the right moment. It's the right way to share what was inside her. The piece was reaching its conclusion now. The final movement was a combination of everything that had come before. All the themes and melodies woven together into something complete and whole. Maya's body swayed with the music, her dark hair moving with each emphatic phrase. She'd forgotten she was wearing her grandmother's dress, forgotten she was on a stage, forgotten everything except the conversation she was having with the piano. The memory of her grandmother was so strong now, It was almost like Lynn was there beside her, playing in harmony. Maya could see her grandmother's hands overlapping with her own, could hear her voice saying, "Yes, that's it exactly. That's what the music is asking for. More feeling, always more feeling." The audience was completely still. Not a single person was moving. Even the younger children who'd been fidgeting earlier were mesmerized. The music had cast a spell over the entire auditorium, suspending time and connecting everyone present through shared emotion. In that moment, it didn't matter who was popular or unpopular, who was rich or poor, who was successful or struggling. Everyone was equal in the face of the music's truth. Maya played the final ascending runs, her fingers climbing up the keyboard with fierce determination. The music was saying something about hope, about the human spirit's ability to rise despite being knocked down again and again. It was saying that beauty can emerge from pain, that silence can give way to song, that invisible people have worlds inside them, waiting to be heard. The climax came with a series of powerful chords that seemed to shake the auditorium. Maya put everything she had into those notes, her entire body lifting off the bench with the force of it. This was the moment where the music declared that it was here, that it existed, that it mattered. This was the moment where Maya Chen, the invisible girl, announced to everyone that she was real and worthy and full of depth they'd never bothered to see. And then, suddenly as the storm had come, it passed. The final notes were soft again, gentle, like a lullaby. Maya played them with infinite tenderness, each one a goodbye to her grandmother, to her childhood, to the person she used to be. The music faded away into silence, the last note hanging in the air like a question that didn't need an answer. Maya's hands rested on the keys. She was breathing hard, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. She'd given everything she had, held nothing back. For a long moment, she just sat there, her eyes still closed, not ready to return to the real world yet. The silence in the auditorium stretched on. 1 second. 2, 3. Maya began to worry. Had she done something wrong? Had people hated it? Was the silence a sign of their disappointment? Then someone stood up. It was Mr. Patterson in the back. He started clapping slowly at first, then faster. Another person stood, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet. The applause started as a wave and built into a roar. People weren't just clapping politely. They were cheering, shouting, some of them crying openly. Maya opened her eyes, disoriented by the noise and the lights. She turned to look at the audience, finally able to see them now that the spell of the music had broken. Hundreds of people were standing for her, their faces bright with emotion. Students who'd never spoken to her were applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Teachers were wiping their eyes. Parents were nodding with respect and admiration. Jessica was on her feet in the front row, clapping harder than anyone. Her face was streaked with tears and her expression had completely changed. There was no mockery there now, no dismissal. Just honest appreciation and something that looked like wonder. Maya stood up from the piano bench on shaky legs. She'd never taken a bow before, wasn't sure how to do it properly, but she managed an awkward curtsy, clutching her grandmother's dress. The applause somehow grew even louder. People were whistling now, shouting bravo. The standing ovation went on, showing no signs of stopping. Backstage, performers who'd felt proud of their own acts just minutes ago now looked at each other with a shared understanding. They'd all been good. Some had been very good. But what Maya had done was something else entirely. She'd reminded everyone what art was supposed to be. Honest, vulnerable, transformative. Mr. Davidson stood in the wings with his hand over his heart, shaking his head in disbelief. He thought about how he'd tried to talk Maya out of performing, how he'd suggested she choose something easier. He'd been so wrong. She hadn't needed his help or his guidance. She'd needed his trust, and he'd failed to give it to her. Maya's mother was sobbing in her seat, her face buried in her husband's shoulder. "That was Lynn," she kept saying. "That was my mother playing through her. Did you hear it? That was Lynn." Maya's father held his wife close, his own eyes damp. "That was Maya," he said gently. "That was our daughter. We've been underestimating her too." On stage, Maya finally stepped back from the piano. The applause continued, but Principal Morrison made his way out to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I think we can all agree that was something special." The audience roared its agreement. Maya, overwhelmed and exhausted, walked toward the wings. As she passed into the darkness off stage, hands reached out to touch her shoulder, to congratulate her. Lisa, the girl who'd smiled at her earlier, grabbed her hand and squeezed it. "That was incredible," she said. "I'm Lisa. I really hope we can be friends." Maya nodded, to overcome to speak. Everything felt surreal, like she was moving through a dream. But as she found her quiet corner backstage again, sitting down on the same folding chair she'd occupied before, she felt something settle inside her. It was peace, maybe, or purpose, or just the simple knowledge that she'd done what she'd set out to do. She'd shared her soul, and people had listened. The auditorium slowly emptied after the show ended. People lingered in clusters, still talking about what they'd witnessed. Maya's performance had shifted something in the atmosphere of the entire evening. What had started as a typical high school talent show had become something people knew they'd remember for years to come. Maya stayed backstage while the crowds filed out, not quite ready to face everyone yet. She changed out of her grandmother's dress carefully, folding it with reverent hands before placing it back in the garment bag. Her regular clothes felt strange after wearing something so meaningful. It's like returning to ordinary life after touching something magical. When she finally emerged into the lobby, she expected it to be empty. Instead, at least 50 people were waiting. Students she'd never spoken to, parents she didn't know, teachers who'd barely noticed her before. They all turned when she appeared, and for a moment Maya wanted to run back into the safety of the empty auditorium. But then her parents pushed through the crowd. Her mother's face still wet with tears. They wrapped her in a tight embrace, and Maya felt herself finally start to relax. "I'm so proud of you," her mother whispered. "Grandma would be so proud." "I felt her there," Maya admitted quietly. "While I was playing, it was like she was right beside me." Her father kissed the top of her head. "That's because she lives in the music. You keep playing, and she'll always be with you." People approached carefully. Respectfully sensing that Maya needed space, Mr. Patterson was there, introducing himself to Maya's parents and explaining how he'd given Maya a place to practice. Mr. Davidson came over, his eyes red, and apologized for doubting her. "I should have trusted you," he said. "I should have believed in you." Maya shook her head. "It's okay. I didn't really believe in myself either until tonight." Lisa, the junior who'd wanted to be friends, waited patiently at the edge of the group. When she finally got a moment with Maya, she spoke quickly like she'd been rehearsing. "I know you don't really know me, but I played cello, and I've been looking for someone to play chamber music with. I was wondering if maybe we could practice together sometime. No pressure, obviously, but I think we could make something really beautiful." Maya felt a smile spreading across her face, her first genuine smile of the night. "I'd like that." Jessica approached last, after most people had said their congratulations, and drifted away. She looked nervous, which was strange to see on someone usually so confident. Maya tensed slightly, expecting something backhanded. Some comment that would remind her of her place in the school's social hierarchy. But Jessica's words surprised her. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I've been really judgmental about you, really dismissive. I thought I knew who you were without ever bothering to actually know you. What you did tonight was amazing, and it made me realize how small I've been acting." Maya didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long being invisible to people like Jessica that this sudden visibility was disorienting. "Thank you," she managed. "Would you maybe want to have lunch together sometime?" Jessica asked. "I'd like to get to know you for real. If you're interested, I mean. I understand if you're not." Maya considered this. Part of her wanted to say no, to protect herself from potential hurt. But another part of her, the brave part that had gotten on stage tonight, nodded. "Sure, that would be nice." As Jessica walked away, Lisa leaned in and whispered, "That's huge." Jessica never apologizes to anyone. The following Monday, Maya walked into Riverside Academy and immediately noticed the difference. People looked at her now, really looked at her. Students she'd never spoken to said hello in the hallways. Teachers smiled at her warmly. Someone had posted a video of her performance online over the weekend, and it had been shared hundreds of times within the school community. At lunch, Maya headed toward her usual table in the corner, her book already open. But before she could sit down, Lisa appeared. "Come sit with us," she said, gesturing to a table where several students from the music and arts programs gathered. "We're talking about organizing a concert for the community center. We thought maybe you'd want to help." Maya hesitated, looking at her quiet corner. It had been her refuge for so long. But refuges were for people who needed to hide, and Maya wasn't sure she needed to hide anymore. She picked up her lunch tray and followed Lisa. The conversation at the table was lively and welcoming. They asked Maya about her training, what other pieces she knew, whether she'd consider playing at the spring concert. Nobody treated her like she was special exactly, but they treated her like she was real, like she mattered. It was a feeling Maya had been waiting for her whole life. Jessica stopped by the table before fifth period. "Hey, we still on for lunch tomorrow?" she asked Maya. "Yeah," Maya said. "Looking forward to it?" After Jessica left, one of the boys at the table, a violinist named Kevin, let out a low whistle. "Jessica Park is having lunch with you? That's wild. She usually only hangs out with the popular kids," Lisa laughed. "Maya is popular now. Genius. Did you see how many views that video got?" But Maya shook her head. "I'm not popular. People just know who I am now. That's different." Over the next few weeks, Maya's life changed in ways she'd never imagined. The local news ran a story about her performance, calling her a hidden talent and a young prodigy. The community center received donations to repair their piano, with people specifically mentioning that they'd heard about the girl who practiced there. Scholarship offers started arriving in the mail. Music programs at prestigious schools interested in her talent, Mr. Patterson called her. He tore into his office at the community center one afternoon. "I have something to show you," he said, leading her to the main room. Where the old broken piano had stood, there was now a beautiful upright and pristine condition. "The donations were enough to buy a new one," Mr. Patterson explained. "But we're keeping the old one too. We put it in the storage room. I thought you might want it someday, considering how much history you have with it." Maya ran her fingers over the new piano's keys. They were smooth and responsive, every note clear and true. It was a wonderful instrument. But she found herself thinking about the old piano, with its stuck keys and squeaky pedal. That piano had taught her to make beauty despite imperfection, to adapt and overcome. She would always be grateful for its lessons. Jessica made good on her promise to have lunch together. At first, their conversations were awkward, both of them unsure how to bridge the gap between their very different worlds. But slowly, they found common ground. Jessica talked about the pressure of always having to be perfect, of maintaining her image and status. Maya talked about the loneliness of being invisible, of watching life happen without being part of it. "I think we're more alike than I realized," Jessica admitted one day. "You were hiding from people who might hurt you. I was hiding behind people who made me feel important. Either way, we were both hiding." I thought about that. I'm not sure I was hiding exactly. I think I was just waiting. For the right moment, the right way to show who I really am. "Well, you found it," Jessica said. "And you helped me find something too. The courage to be real instead of just being popular." Tyler, the rock band kid, started saying hello to Maya in the hallways. One day he stopped her after class. "I've been thinking about what you played," he said. "About how you weren't afraid to show emotion, to be vulnerable. My band's been playing the same aggressive stuff for years because we thought that's what made us cool. But lately, I've been writing different kinds of songs. More honest ones. Would you maybe want to collaborate on something?" Maya was surprised but intrigued. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know exactly," Tyler admitted. "But I think piano and guitar could sound really interesting together. And I think we could make something that actually means something, you know?" They started meeting twice a week, experimenting with different sounds and styles. Tyler brought his acoustic guitar, and they'd work through melodies together. Sometimes Lisa would join them with her cello, and the three of them would improvise, creating music that felt fresh and honest. It wasn't always perfect, but it was real. and that mattered more. Maya's parents noticed the change in their daughter. She smiled more now, talked about her day with genuine excitement, made plans with friends on weekends. Her mother sometimes caught Maya staring at her grandmother's photo with a peaceful expression instead of the deep sadness that used to be there. "You've come so far," her mother said one evening. Maya shook her head. "I haven't really changed. I think I just finally let people see who I've always been." 6 months after the talent show, Maya performed again, this time at a charity concert downtown to raise money for music education programs. The venue was small, but prestigious, a historic hall where her grandmother had once performed decades ago. Maya played the same Rachmaninoff piece, but it felt different now. The desperation and fear were gone, replaced by confidence and joy.